Well. Just when you thought Formula One couldn't spiral any further into absurdity, BAM, Lewis Hamilton gets disqualified at the Chinese Grand Prix and suddenly the sport looks less like a race and more like an episode of Breaking Bad, Maranello edition. What started off as your typical whoops, the car's too low blunder has morphed into a full-blown paddock soap opera, and guess who's dancing right in the middle of this flaming circus? That's right, Ferrari. Red suits, polished grins, and PR statements smoother than silk sheets. But behind the scenes? Absolute chaos. Engineering departments are going DEFCON 1. Because it turns out this isn't just about a wooden plank being a tad too thin under Hamilton's Ferrari. Sorry, the Ferrari. Nope, it might be something far more catastrophic. New data has emerged. Yes, that kind of data. The kind that makes team bosses sweat bullets and engineers whisper in code. Word is spreading like wildfire that the real culprit behind Hamilton's underbody debacle isn't just the car sitting too close to the tarmac like it's doing yoga. No, it might be a total meltdown in how Ferrari has been handling their suspension setups. We're talking next-level screw-up. Allegedly, they botched the calibration so badly that it's starting to look less like human error and more like a systemic failure. And now, behind closed doors, it's all hush-hush, top-secret, 007 type stuff. Rivals are dissecting every byte of telemetry, every whisper of tire wear, every split second in those setup sheets. It's looking more and more like Ferrari's woes stretch all the way back to rushed preseason simulations, slapdash adjustments during the sprint weekend, and, brace yourself, ignoring warning signs that were practically screaming, "Check the damn ride height." Here's where it gets juicy. This might not be a one-off blunder. If the whispers hold any truth, Ferrari could have been skating on a razor's edge all season long. And worse, it might drag the FIA's technical rulebook into the spotlight yet again, because of course it would. Another day, another regulation scandal in the circus that is F1. So before you scroll away, smash that like button and stick around, because we're about to rip this scandal wide open and dig into what it means for Ferrari's shaky 2025 campaign, and for Hamilton's roller coaster ride in Scarlet. Let's rewind for a second. Just hours after the checkered flag waved in Shanghai, Ferrari fans were cautiously optimistic. Lewis had muscled that Scarlet machine into P6, while their golden boy, Charles Leclerc, brought it home in P5. Not bad considering Ferrari started 2025 more unstable than a toddler on stilts. But then, the FIA came knocking. Boom. Both cars? Disqualified. Yeah, turns out Leclerc's car fell below the minimum weight requirement. How the hell does that happen in 2025 with all the tech and sensors at their disposal? Meanwhile, Hamilton's car failed the wooden plank test, officially called the skid block test, but let's be real, it's a plank of damn wood, because his car was practically shaving asphalt like it was trying to mine for diamonds. It was riding that low. Now, at first glance, these seemed like rookie errors. The kind of mistakes you'd expect from the backmarkers, not a billion-dollar racing team with more PhDs than a university campus. But then, the murmurs began. And one theory is now picking up steam like a boiling kettle someone forgot to turn off. Here's the deal. Every F1 car has a wooden plank. Yes, wood, not some high-tech alloy, attached to its underside. The FIA mandates it stay at least 9 millimeters thick to make sure teams aren't running too low. Hamilton's? It measured 8.6 millimeters on the left, 8.6 millimeters in the middle, and 8.5 millimeters on the right. Boom. Automatic disqualification. Ferrari. They didn't fight it. No tantrum, no dramatic appeal. Just a quiet, "Yeah, we screwed up," and confirmation that the numbers were legit. But what they haven't explained, at least not out loud, is how a mistake that basic slipped past their battalion of sensors, simulations, and tech wizards. And that's where the real drama lies. Because this isn't just a one-off goof. No, this might be the smoking gun. A sign that there are deeper cracks in Ferrari's operation, from flawed data processing to chaotic suspension setups to, maybe even their mechanics needing an extra espresso or 3 on race day. In short, what looked like a routine disqualification could actually be a flashing red warning light that Ferrari's entire 2025 season is hanging on by a thread. And for Hamilton? Let's just say this isn't exactly the fairy tale start he envisioned when he ditched Mercedes for the chaos of Maranello. And the FIA? Oh, they did what they do best, handed out a cold bureaucratic slap on the wrist. No explanation, no mercy, just a disqualification with all the warmth of a tax audit. But here's the twist, this wasn't just a little, oops, our bad. Nope. If what's being whispered around the paddock is true, this blunder runs deep. We're talking about operational breakdowns tied to a complete lack of dry data, misjudged setups, and an engineering team that might be drowning in spreadsheets and ignoring the basics. And of course, right at the center of this mess? Hamilton. Again. Let's rewind the tape to those sunny yet shaky preseason test days in Bahrain. Lewis was supposed to get a full-blown race simulation in the shiny new SF-25. That was the plan. Heavy fuel load, dry track, long stints. Data galore. But guess what? Murphy's Law showed up early. His car ran into a technical gremlin, and instead of collecting a treasure chest of usable dry weather performance info, Ferrari ended up with a busted car, some confused vibrations, and a whole lot of nothing. Fast forward to China, Hamilton's first proper dry race of the season, and suddenly those missing data points are biting harder than ever. You see where this disaster is heading, right? Here's the working theory. After jacking up the ride height for the brutal street circuit in Australia, and with rain messing up any real setup learning, Ferrari thought, hey, Shanghai's smooth, why not drop it again and go low? Lower ride height usually means more downforce, more grip, more speed. Sexy idea on paper. But here's the catch. They had no clue what would happen with a full tank of fuel and a car pushed to its absolute limit over race distance on a bone-dry track. Translation: they took a wild guess and prayed it wouldn't backfire. Spoiler alert, it did. The car was basically kissing the tarmac all race long. And to twist the knife, Hamilton actually won the sprint that weekend. Yup, took the W. That shorter dash didn't expose the issue, because it runs with a totally different tire strategy and less fuel. So, everything looked peachy, until it wasn't. That damn plank underneath the car didn't have enough time to wear down in the sprint, so the real problem stayed hidden. Sneaky little bastard, that plank. But hold on to your helmets, the mess only gets juicier. Leclerc, Lair, as people mockingly call him now, got booted from the results too. Not for the same reason, though. Oh no, Ferrari decided to serve 2 flavors of screw-up in one weekend. Early in the race, Lair's front wing took damage. Ferrari swapped it out. By the book, no funny business. But after the race, even with the heavier spare wing, the car still came in under the 800 kilograms minimum weight. By almost a whole kilo. That's not a rounding error. That's a miscalculation so wild it makes you question whether anyone in Maranello is actually using a calculator. To be fair, the FIA acknowledged Ferrari followed protocol when replacing the wing. But do you think that mattered? Not one bit. The car was too light, the rules are clear, and there's no close enough category in the FIA manual. So bam, double disqualification. No mercy. No appeal. Just shame. This 1-2 punch has sparked another internal crisis at Ferrari HQ. Cue the dramatic meetings and furious shouting in Italian. People are now seriously re-evaluating the entire setup philosophy of the SF-25. The whispers? That this car is an unhinged diva. So temperamental, so hypersensitive to ride height changes, that if the planets don't align perfectly, it just throws a tantrum and falls apart. In engineering terms, we're talking about a peaky platform, meaning when it's set up just right, it flies. But even the slightest misstep, a bumpy curb, a miscalculated fuel load, a gust of wind, and the whole thing collapses like a cheap folding chair. Other teams have cars with wider setup windows. They can handle rough tracks, full tanks, and aggressive curbs without imploding. Ferrari chose the all-in or bust strategy. And when it works, sure, it's brilliant. But when it doesn't, it's a damn horror show. So, the next time you see a Ferrari blitzing down the straight looking like the fastest thing on earth, just remember, under that glossy red shell might be a fragile setup, hanging by a thread and ready to collapse like a house of cards. And poor Lewis. Yeah, he probably didn't sign up for this circus when he inked his contract. Welcome to Maranello, buddy. Hope you brought a helmet and a prayer. What makes this whole saga even more heartbreaking for Hamilton is that, let's face it, none of this is his fault. The guy showed up, did his job, drove like a man possessed, and delivered when it mattered. He nailed the sprint. First pole. First win in red. Cue the trumpets and confetti in Italy. But come Sunday, the actual race, he wasn't just battling the grid. He was wrestling a car that felt like it was designed by a blindfolded intern and set up by someone speaking a different language entirely. Yes, we're talking about that now infamous radio call with Adami, the one that sounded more like a confused fast food order than a high-stakes F1 strategy discussion. Despite the chaos, Lewis pushed through. He fought balance issues, weird grip loss, a busted wing early on, and still brought it home. Only for all of it to be wiped out by what now looks like a fundamental, deep-rooted systems failure in Ferrari's race weekend prep and configuration validation. This wasn't just a bad day. This was a red flag for the whole Ferrari operation. Hamilton wasn't his usual radiant self. The sparkle? Gone. That familiar, easy grin? Nowhere in sight. He didn't throw anyone under the bus, at least not on camera, staying as polished and classy as ever. But if you read between the lines of his clipped responses, you could practically hear the frustration bubbling beneath the surface like a volcano about to blow. He pointed to a lack of rear grip, trouble rotating the car through low-speed corners, classic symptoms of a twitchy, unstable platform. Let's not kid ourselves. That car wasn't just poorly set up, it was a disaster from the jump. And yes, he was furious. Not just because of the disqualification, but because he knew how hard he had worked to drag that unpredictable diva of a machine across the finish line. He bled for that drive. And what did he get for it? Disqualified. Gutted. Welcome to Ferrari, Lewis. Now, this double disqualification debacle? It's not just a minor hiccup, it's a full-blown catastrophe. Ferrari just got hammered in the constructors' standings. Both drivers lost critical points. But most importantly, the already wobbly trust between Hamilton and his new team is shaking like jello in an earthquake. Let's be real. Lewis left Mercedes. Yes, Mercedes, in search of that elusive 8th world title. He didn't switch teams to babysit a bunch of amateurs fumbling basic race prep. Ferrari can't afford to keep botching the fundamentals. We're talking ground-level stuff here. Chassis height, weight checks, the ABCs of a Formula One weekend. These aren't complex, abstract variables. They're the foundation. If you're screwing that up, it raises serious questions about your internal structure, your quality control, and who the hell is double-checking the numbers. And here's the kicker. Fresh post-race analysis is pointing to something much worse. This wasn't just a sloppy one-off mistake. No, this could be a systemic failure. We're talking about an aggressively risky setup philosophy, a dangerous lack of real-world data, and a car so touchy it throws a tantrum if someone sneezes near it. If that's the case, Ferrari's not just in trouble, they're knee-deep in a crisis. And they can't just brush it off with a sheepish, oops. They'll need to rip apart their current ride height philosophy, tear down their simulation models, and rebuild everything from the ground up before Lewis completely loses his patience. Right now, the tools at his disposal aren't just imprecise, they're untrustworthy. And in the world of F1, that's practically a sin. For Hamilton, this isn't a small speed bump. This is a giant, flashing warning sign with sirens blaring. He didn't come to Ferrari for podium photo ops and PR disasters. He came to make history. But history only happens when your team delivers a car that doesn't eat FIA regulations for breakfast like a malfunctioning shredder. He needs a machine that's not just fast, it has to be reliable, predictable, and consistent. It can't fall apart the second a curb is too rough or the fuel load's off by half a liter. Because in today's F1, one bad setup call, one botched calculation, one misstep in tire pressures, and boom, your whole weekend goes up in smoke. Just like this one did. So now the question is, did Ferrari just pull back the curtain on something way more rotten inside their operation? Can they get their act together before more race weekends go swirling down the drain? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't hold back. And hey, if you want to stay strapped in for every mind-bending twist of this chaotic 2025 season, hit that like, smash subscribe, and ring the damn bell, because trust us, we're just getting started. If there's one thing this whole scandal has made crystal clear, it's that Ferrari's issues go way deeper than just lap times. Every disqualification, every bungled radio call, every panicked setup change is part of a much bigger story. One that could reshape the entire championship in ways no one saw coming. Whether it's poor setup calls, broken processes, or flat-out communication breakdowns, one thing's becoming more obvious with every race. If Ferrari wants to fight McLaren and Red Bull on equal ground, they're going to need to evolve, fast. Because Hamilton? He's charging into a pivotal stretch of the season, hungry for consistency, surrounded by chaos. And that pressure? It's reaching its boiling point. Every practice lap, every qualifying session, every race. It's all going to matter now. And in a sport this cutthroat, the margin for error isn't small, it's non-existent. So stay locked in. This story's heating up, the stakes are massive, and every week brings another plot twist that no one saw coming. We'll be right here, delivering every juicy detail, every spicy update, and every glorious WTF moment of this wild roller coaster of a season. Thanks for watching, and buckle up. For Ferrari, the ride is far from over.